She stood in the hospital corridor, her newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms, while her husband filled out the birth certificate at the nurse's station. When he asked what name they'd chosen, she heard herself say it before she could stop. The name of the woman he'd been sleeping with for 2 years. It was the only way to keep the secret safe, the only way to survive what she'd discovered. And for the next 18 years, every time she called her daughter's name, she would relive the moment her entire world shattered. But here's what she didn't know. That name would eventually destroy everything she'd sacrificed to protect. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because you're about to hear a story that will absolutely wreck you. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. I love seeing this community grow from all corners of the world. This is a true story. Names and some details have been changed, but what you're about to hear actually happened. Let's begin. October 2006. Maplewood, a quiet suburb where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. Rebecca Walsh had the kind of life that made other women jealous at dinner parties. A beautiful colonial house with a wraparound porch, 2 healthy boys ages 6 and 4, and a husband who still kissed her goodbye every morning after 12 years of marriage. David Walsh was a commercial real estate developer, successful, handsome in that aging well kind of way, salt and pepper hair, laugh lines around his eyes, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries and never missed his son's soccer games. "We're trying for a girl," Rebecca would tell her friends at book club, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "David's always wanted a daughter, says he wants to walk someone down the aisle someday." Her best friend Monica would squeeze her hand and smile. "You two are goals, seriously, if my marriage was half as solid." Rebecca would laugh it off, but inside she believed it. She genuinely believed she'd won the marriage lottery. The pregnancy came easier than expected. By Thanksgiving, she was 12 weeks along. They told the boys over pumpkin pie. Her oldest, Christopher, made a face. "Another brother?" "We don't know yet, buddy," David said, ruffling his hair. But he caught Rebecca's eye across the table, and they shared a secret smile. They both wanted that girl. Christmas came. Rebecca was showing now, that beautiful second trimester glow that made strangers smile at her in grocery stores. David's business was booming. He'd just closed the biggest deal of his career, a massive commercial development downtown. "This is it, Beck," he told her on New Year's Eve, his hand on her growing belly. "This is our year." She had no idea how right he was, just not in the way she thought. It started small, the way these things always do. Late January, Rebecca was 20 weeks pregnant. David started coming home later, not dramatically late, just 30 minutes here, an hour there, always with explanations that made perfect sense. Traffic was insane. Had to show the property to a potential investor. Grab drinks with the guys from the construction crew. Rebecca believed him. Why wouldn't she? This was David, her David, the man who'd proposed to her on a rooftop in Manhattan with a ring he'd saved for 2 years to afford. The man who cried when their first son was born. But then came February 10th. Rebecca was folding laundry in their bedroom when David's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower. The screen lit up with a text message preview. "Elena, can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" Rebecca's hands froze on the tiny pajamas she'd been folding, Christopher's superhero pajamas. Her mind went blank, then immediately tried to rationalize. Elena, that was the interior designer David had mentioned for the new commercial building. She was probably talking about the presentation, last night's presentation. The phone buzzed again. "Elena, I can still taste you." The pajamas fell from Rebecca's hands. Time did something strange. It felt like she stood there for hours, but when David emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, only seconds had passed. "You okay?" he asked, noticing her face. "You look pale." This is where Rebecca made her first mistake. She said nothing. She picked up the pajamas, smiled weakly, and said, "Just feeling a little nauseous. The baby's been pressing on my stomach." David kissed her forehead. "Want me to make you some tea?" She nodded, watching him leave the room, his phone in his hand. That night, she couldn't sleep. David snored softly beside her, one arm draped over her pregnant belly. She stared at the ceiling, trying to convince herself she'd misunderstood those messages. But at 3:47 a.m., she did something she'd never done before. She took David's phone from his nightstand. His passcode was their anniversary. It always had been. What she found in those text messages over the next 17 minutes would change everything. Elena Rossi, 28 years old, the interior designer for David's new building. They'd met in November, started sleeping together in December. The affair had been going on for 3 months. 3 months. She was carrying his child, and for 3 months he'd been... She didn't cry. That's what she remembered most later. She should have sobbed, screamed, thrown things, but instead she felt nothing, just a vast, echoing emptiness where her heart used to be. She put the phone back exactly where she'd found it, and in that moment, in the darkness of their bedroom, with her husband's arms still resting on their unborn daughter, Rebecca made a decision that would haunt her for the next 18 years. She would say nothing. "I need you to understand why I didn't confront him immediately," Rebecca would tell me years later, her voice steady but her hands trembling. "I was 6 months pregnant. I had 2 small boys. My entire life was built on this marriage, and I was terrified." February turned to March. Rebecca became an expert at pretending. She smiled at breakfast. She kissed David goodbye. She went to her prenatal appointments and listened to her daughter's heartbeat and felt like she was living in someone else's life. At night, while David slept, she would scroll through his messages. She learned everything about Elena Rossi. She was young, successful, from a wealthy Italian family. She had an apartment downtown, paid for by her father. She collected modern art. She'd never been married, never had children. She was everything Rebecca used to be, before mortgages and minivans and stretch marks. The messages were poetic, passionate. David told Elena things he hadn't said to Rebecca in years. He called her my escape. He said being with her made him feel young again. One message, dated March 3rd, destroyed Rebecca completely. "David, sometimes I fantasize about what life would be like if we'd met first, before all the obligations." Obligations. That's what Rebecca was now, an obligation, her and their sons and their unborn daughter. The 20-week ultrasound confirmed it was a girl. David cried in the examination room, holding Rebecca's hand. "Our princess," he whispered, kissing her knuckles. That night, he met Elena at her apartment. Rebecca tracked his location on the Find My Friends app she'd secretly activated on his phone. He stayed until 11:47 p.m. April brought something unexpected. Rebecca was folding laundry again. She always seemed to be folding laundry when her life fell apart, when she found a receipt in David's jacket pocket. Tiffany & Company, a purchase for $8,400. Her heart hammered. For a moment, a stupid, desperate moment, she thought maybe it was for her. Maybe he was planning some grand gesture. Maybe he was going to end things with Elena, and she checked his messages that night. "David, it's perfect. She's going to love it. Elena, I can't believe you remembered I loved sapphires. I can't wait to wear it, baby." Rebecca locked herself in the bathroom and finally cried, deep, shaking sobs that she had to muffle with a towel so David wouldn't hear. Her daughter ticked inside her, as if to say, "I'm here, Mom. I'm still here." That's when the plan began to form. It came to her in pieces, late at night, during grocery shopping, in the shower, a plan born from pain and pragmatism, and something darker she didn't want to examine too closely.
If she confronted David, he might leave, might choose Elena. Then what? She'd be a single mother of 3, her entire support system built on couple friends who would awkwardly take sides. Her identity as David's wife would evaporate. The house would be sold. The boys would shuttle between homes on weekends. But if she stayed quiet, if she made it impossible for Elena to continue the affair, if she found a way to remind David every single day of what he'd done without him ever knowing she knew. "I know it sounds insane," Rebecca told me, "but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was drowning, and this felt like the only way to keep my head above water." May 12th. Rebecca was 34 weeks pregnant. She staged the revelation. She accidentally opened David's phone while hers was charging, claiming she needed to check the time. She stumbled upon his messages with Elena. She made sure the boys were at her mother's house first. Her performance was Oscar-worthy, screaming, crying, throwing his phone across the room. She didn't have to fake the pain. She just let it out. Finally, after 3 months of swallowing it down, David fell apart. He begged, pleaded, swore it meant nothing, promised he'd end it immediately. He cried harder than she'd ever seen him cry. "I don't know what I was thinking," he sobbed, on his knees in their kitchen. "I love you, Beck. I love our family. She was just... God, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." Rebecca let him grovel for hours. Then, voice hoarse from screaming, she delivered her ultimatum. "You end it tonight, completely. You tell her it's over, that you're committed to your family, and you never speak to her again. You quit the project with her company, you find a different designer, and you do it while I'm sitting right next to you." David nodded frantically. "Yes, yes, anything." "And David," Rebecca's voice went cold, "if I ever find out you contacted her again, I take the boys and you never see them again. Do you understand?" He understood. That night, with Rebecca sitting inches away, David called Elena and ended it. Rebecca insisted it be a phone call, not a text. She wanted to hear it. Elena cried. She called him a coward. She said she loved him. David said all the right things. "I'm sorry. This was a mistake. I have a family. I have a daughter on the way. I can't do this anymore." When he hung up, his hands were shaking. Rebecca felt nothing, just that same vast emptiness. "I need time," she told him. "I need to think about whether I can ever forgive this." David nodded, devastated. "Whatever you need." What David didn't know was that Rebecca had already decided. She would forgive him. Publicly. She would tell their friends and family that they were working through it, going to counseling, stronger than ever. Privately, she would name their daughter Elena. June 18th, 2007, 3:42 a.m. Rebecca's water broke while she was sleeping. David drove her to the hospital, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, apologizing the entire way for every bump in the road. "I'm here, Beck. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." 8 hours of labor. David held her hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragements. To anyone watching, they were the picture of a united couple, welcoming their daughter together. Only Rebecca knew the truth. At 11:28 a.m., their daughter was born. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Perfect in every way. Dark hair already thick, eyes that would eventually turn hazel like David's. The nurse placed her in Rebecca's arms. "She's beautiful. Have you chosen a name?" David looked at Rebecca, his eyes still red from crying tears of joy. They'd discussed names for months before the affair came to light. They'd narrowed it down to 3: Charlotte, Sophia, and Grace. Rebecca looked down at her daughter, this tiny, innocent creature who had no idea what mess she'd been born into. This baby girl who deserved a mother who wasn't broken, a father who wasn't a cheater, a family that wasn't built on lies. "Elena," Rebecca heard herself say. "Her name is Elena." The room went quiet. David stared at her. "What?" Rebecca didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on her daughter. "Elena Rose Walsh. It's perfect. Don't you think it's perfect, David?" She watched his face drain of color, watched him try to form words, watched the realization hit him like a freight train. "Rebecca, we never discussed that name." "I know." Her voice was calm, steady, almost pleasant. "But I love it. Elena, it means bright, shining light. And she is, isn't she? Our bright light." The nurse, oblivious to the tension, smiled. "Elena, that's lovely. Let me get the birth certificate paperwork started." David followed Rebecca out into the hallway, leaving their daughter with the nurse. His voice was barely a whisper. "You can't. Rebecca, you can't do this." Can't do what? She met his eyes for the first time. Name our daughter? It's a beautiful name. You should know. You told her that once, didn't you? In a text message on February 17th, you said, "Your name sounds like music." David's face went gray. Beck, this is cruel. Is it? Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. I think it's poetic. Every time you called her name, you'll remember. Every time you introduce her to someone, every parent-teacher conference, every birthday party, every time she runs to you yelling "Daddy," and you see her name written on her backpack, you'll remember what you did. I can't, his voice broke. I can't call my daughter by her name. I can't do that. Then you'll have to explain to everyone why you won't use your daughter's name, won't you? Rebecca's voice was ice. You'll have to explain to our families, our friends, to Elena herself when she's old enough to ask why Daddy never calls her by her name. Or, Rebecca continued, you can do what I've been doing for the last 4 months. You can pretend. You can smile and say her name and act like everything is fine. You can live with your guilt every single day, the way I've been living with this pain. David leaned against the hospital wall, his eyes closed. I'm so sorry. God, Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I know you are. Her voice softened just slightly, but sorry doesn't change anything. This does. This keeps our family together. This makes sure you never, ever forget. She turned to walk back into the room, then paused. Oh, and David, if I ever tried to have the name changed, if I ever call her by a nickname to avoid saying it, I'll take that as proof you're not truly committed to this family, and I'll leave. Do we understand each other? He understood. The birth certificate was filed. Family came to visit. Friends brought balloons and flowers. Everyone cooed over baby Elena. What a unique choice, Rebecca's mother said. Where did you come up with it? It just came to me. Rebecca smiled as she held her daughter. The moment I saw her, I knew she wasn't Elena. David stood by the window, silent, his jaw clenched. For the next 18 years, he would call his daughter by the name of the woman he'd betrayed his wife with, and Rebecca would make sure he never ever forgot. They stayed together. To the outside world, the Walshes were a success story, a couple who'd faced a rough patch and come out stronger. David left his company and started his own firm. He was home for dinner every night. He coached Elena's soccer team. He never missed a recital, a game, a school event. He was, by all accounts, a devoted father. But Rebecca saw what others didn't. She saw how he flinched just slightly each time he said their daughter's name. She saw how he avoided introducing her to new people unless necessary, finding ways to say, "my daughter," instead of "Elena." She saw the pain in his eyes every time Elena wrote her name in crayon, in marker, in sparkly gel pen as she got older. "Look what I made, Daddy. It has my name on it." And David would smile and say, "That's beautiful, sweetheart," while something inside him died a little more. Rebecca felt many things over those years: satisfaction, guilt, vindication, regret, sometimes all at once. Elena grew up beautiful, intelligent, kind. She had her father's eyes and her mother's determination. She was everything they'd hoped for in a daughter. She was also a constant living reminder of the worst moment in their marriage. "Do you still love him?" Monica asked Rebecca once, when Elena was 7 and they were watching her play at the park. Rebecca took a long time to answer. "I don't know," she finally said. "I love what we built. I love my family. But David, the man I thought I married, he died the night I read those messages. The man I live with now is someone else. That's no way to live, Beck. Maybe not, but it's the life I chose." The irony was that David became a better husband after the affair. Attentive, present, he never worked late unless necessary. He planned date nights, he remembered anniversaries, but there was a distance between them now, a canyon neither could bridge.
They slept in the same bed, raised their children together, attended family functions side by side. To everyone else, they were fine. In private, they were strangers who shared a terrible secret.
And that secret had a name. Elena's 16th birthday was particularly cruel. David had hired a calligrapher to make a banner. Happy Sweet 16, Elena. Rebecca watched him hang it in their living room, watched his hands shake slightly as he tied the ribbons, watched him step back and stare at his daughter's name in beautiful, flowing script. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. He didn't look at her. "Do you ever regret it, naming her that?" It was the first time he'd asked directly in 16 years. Rebecca thought about it, really thought about it. "Every day," she finally admitted, "and not at all." "That doesn't make sense." "Nothing about our marriage has made sense for 16 years, David." Elena's 18th birthday, April 2025. She was heading to college in the fall. Stanford, early admission. David had cried when she got the acceptance letter, proud and heartbroken that his baby girl was leaving. The birthday dinner was at their favorite Italian restaurant, the whole family, plus Monica and her husband. Everyone was laughing, toasting Elena's future, reminiscing about her childhood. Then Elena asked the question that would finally detonate the bomb Rebecca had planted 18 years earlier. "Mom, Dad, I have to ask, how did you choose my name? I've been filling out all these college forms, meeting new people, and everyone always comments on it. Elena, that's so pretty. Elena, that's unique. But you've never actually told me the story." Rebecca's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. David went completely still. "I mean," Elena continued, oblivious, "Christopher is named after your dad, Mom. Michael is named after Grandpa Walsh. But Elena, where did that come from?" The table went quiet. Monica's eyes darted between Rebecca and David, suddenly understanding. "It's a beautiful name," Rebecca said carefully. "When I saw you, it just fit." "But why that specific name?" Elena pressed. She was smiling, curious, wanting the story she'd tell people at Stanford. "Did you know someone named Elena? Was it from a book, a movie?" David stood abruptly. "I need some air." He walked outside. Elena looked confused. "Did I say something wrong?" Rebecca watched her daughter's innocent face, this girl who'd carried the weight of her parents' dysfunction her entire life without knowing it. This brilliant, kind, beautiful person who deserved so much better than what they'd given her. And Rebecca realized, sitting in that Italian restaurant with her daughter looking at her with concern, that she'd made a terrible mistake, not in naming her Elena, in staying. 3 months later, Rebecca filed for divorce. "I can't do it anymore," she told David as they sat in their living room, the house quiet with all 3 kids moved out. "I thought I could live with it. I thought punishing you every day for 18 years would heal something inside me, but it didn't. It just made us both miserable." David didn't fight it. There was relief in his eyes. "Does she know?" he asked. "About why you named her?" "No." Rebecca's voice was firm. "And she never will. That's not her burden to carry. That's ours. We did that to her, David. We used our daughter as a weapon in our war with each other. I never wanted that. Neither did I, but we did it anyway." Today, Rebecca lives in an apartment downtown. She has dinner with Elena once a week. She's in therapy, working through 18 years of buried resentment and pain. David remarried last year. Not to anyone from his past, someone new. He's happy, Rebecca thinks, or at least he's trying to be. And Elena? She's thriving at Stanford. She loves her name. She thinks it's beautiful, unique, hers. She has no idea that every time her father said it, he was reminded of the worst mistake he ever made. She has no idea that her mother chose it as an act of revenge and survival. She just knows she's Elena. And that's enough. Sometimes the worst thing you can do to someone isn't to confront them. It's to make them live with their betrayal every single day, in the smallest, most intimate ways. Rebecca kept her husband's secret by naming their daughter after his mistress.
and in doing so, she destroyed them both. If this story affected you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories that will break your heart. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in Rebecca's position. Would you have stayed? Would you have named your daughter Elena? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the worst stories are the ones that remind us we're human. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.